Do you ever feel like all you hear about lately is voting? Well, me too. So I thought it might be good to read a story today about what this voting thing is all about and why it's such a big deal to our parents and the adults in our world. What is an election? Packed with facts you need to read by Karen Jenner. Chapter 1. What is an election? An election is when a group of people vote for someone to represent them or to do something for them. Voting means choosing the person you want. The person with the most votes is the winner. You might have an election to choose a class president or a team captain. Elections are often held to choose the people in government. A government makes the laws for a country or local area. For example, Americans vote to elect people to Congress and to elect the President of the United States. The people who are elected must promise to do what is best for the country. In this picture, our former U.S. President Barack Obama is meeting with members of Congress in 2012. People who run for election are called candidates. Each candidate wants voters to think that they are the best person for the job. Candidates hope that lots of people will vote for them. They travel around and speak to many voters. This is called a campaign. Here, Veena George talks to voters in India about what she will do for her people if she wins. Candidates tell voters what they will do if they are elected. Voters use this information to decide who to vote for. Which candidate will do what is best for the country? The voters choose. Here, U.S. presidential candidate Senator John McCain is in 2008. History. The idea of voting a person or group into power has been around for a very long time. In ancient Greece, the idea of elections came from ancient Greece. Elections in the city of Sparta were decided by who could shout the loudest. Europe. Before the 1600s, mainly upper-class men voted in elections in Europe. Many people had to fight to win their right to vote. States. The United States Constitution was written in 1787. It set out the first rules for the American government and its elections. Chapter 2. Voting. You can vote in an election. Voters usually live in the place where the election is held. In most countries, voters also have to be at least 18 years old. In many places, people must register to vote before an election by adding their name, age, and address to a list of voters. Here, a line of voters is outside a polling station in Australia. Each voter can only vote once. Most voters go to a special polling station to vote in government elections. Who you vote for is secret. No one should tell you which candidate to choose. In some countries, voters must register before voting. Some people use their computer to vote online. Others send their votes through the mail, such as these. Polling stations, voters cast their ballots in a private booth. Some polling stations have voting machines that count the votes for each candidate. Others list the candidates on a paper ballot. Each voter picks the name of their chosen candidate. It's very important to vote in elections. No one knows which candidate will win the election, but every vote counts. People who don't vote lose the chance to have their say in how their government is run. The right to vote. All adults should have the right to vote, but in many places, some people have not always been allowed to vote. These include women, poor people, and people who belong to a minority race or religion. This picture shows women in the United Kingdom marching to vote in 1910. British women over the age of 30 were granted the vote in 1918. They were given equal voting rights with men in 1928. 3. Elections around the world. Government elected by the people of a country is called a democracy. A democracy gives power to voters to elect their government. In return, the government must do what is best for the people. If they don't, they lose votes in the next election. In most countries, candidates belong to a political party. This is a group of people with similar ideas on how to run the country. A political party campaigns by holding up posters, handing out leaflets, and giving interviews. The main political parties in the United States are the Democrats and the Republicans. They each have their own election called a primary. In the primary, they choose their party's candidates for president. The Democrats and the Republicans then compete against each other to get their candidate elected. Countries are governed by a group of representatives who meet in Parliament. Voters elect a member of Parliament, MP, for their local area. The leaders of the party with the most MPs become leader of the country. This leader is called the Prime Minister. This is the London House of Parliament. Not all countries have elections. In some part of the world, people do not have a chance to vote. One person holds power and makes all of the decisions for others, such as empires and kings. Fun facts. Many countries hold elections on a weekend, so people have more time to vote. In Australia, all citizens over the age of 18 are required to vote by law. In India, there are so many voters that elections can take several weeks. American astronauts aboard the International Space Station can still vote from space. Chapter 4, let's elect. You could hold an election for class president or for student council members. The voters are all the people in your class. Choose a date for an election, then find out who wants to be a candidate. Candidates make posters asking the class to vote for them. They give speeches to class too. Candidates tell voters why they would be a good class president or student council member. What would they do for this class or school? Sell paper ballots to your class on the day of an election. Ballots should list all the candidates. Remember, everyone has just one vote. Each voter secretly marks and acts by the name of their favorite candidate. They then put their paper ballot into a ballot box. Carefully count the votes. The person with the most votes wins the election. Congratulations! Winning the elections is just the first step. The voters think that the new class president or student council member will do a very good job for the class. That's why they won the election. And now it's time for them to get to work. Maybe you learned something new about voting. I know I did. Teach your parents. This is some fun and interesting stuff. Someday, you guys will all be 18 too, and it will be your turn to vote.